Welcome all to the latest edition of Drunk on Writing Reacts. Today, we're going to be talking about a tweet. Well, actually, it's a lot more than that, but the tweet is really what drove me to want to film this, so that's what we're going to concentrate on. We're going to touch on a whole bunch of stuff. There's going to be some somewhat sensitive imagery that is publicly out there. It's not like porno or anything. Don't get me wrong. But some people might find it a little offensive, I guess. So keep that in mind. If you have a super sensitive stomach, you may just want to look away or something. I'll point it out when we get there. So, yes, a tweet. Specifically from a comic book creator that I happen to really respect and really enjoy. Also one that I recently, after I read this tweet, dropped their book. This is the tweet. I'm all for freedom of expression in art, but one has to be responsible with it. This Chaykin thing is vile and unconscionable. It's that but in there that is getting me. You can't say you're all for freedom of artistic expression and then say but. It doesn't work that way. You either are or you aren't. But let's talk about this Chaykin thing that Cameron references, so you can actually get an understanding of what it is that's being argued here. So this is what I was warning you right at the start. Might be a little sensitive. I'm going to show you a cover for Howard Chaykin's new book, The Divided States of Hysteria, issue number 4, which has since been pulled. Last chance to look away. I'm going to show it now. This is the book. This is the cover that is getting everybody in such an uproar. It depicts a man in a noose with his genitals mutilated and the word Packy on his shirt. Obviously, racial slur, obviously something of a hate crime. Now this is an offensive cover. I agree with this. Do not doubt this at all. But what my problem with this whole scenario is, the book isn't even out. It was just solicited by Image Comics for release in several months. Issue number 1 just came out. As of this filming, issue number 2 came out last week, I believe. I don't read the book. I had no plans to read a book. I never had any plans to read the book. Howard Chaykin is an artist that I have only really appreciated while working with Matt Fraction on a book called Satellite Sam, another book published by Image Comics, which I actually have a piece of original art from because I enjoyed it so much. This is not about that book. This is about The Divided States of Hysteria, and particularly this cover, and particularly the tweets that came out surrounding this cover. So there's a whole bunch of attacks on Chaykin. People coming up and saying how awful it is, how offensive it is. Don't get me wrong, there are some positive ones as well. Kari Andrews, who I personally adore, is such a nice guy, actually sent me a PDF issue of one of his books a couple years back when I was reviewing comics on a weekly basis for my website, warrenpolowski.com. He defended Chaykin in a series of tweets, went out and republished the Comic Code Authority about it, just was completely against this outcry, this public chastening of Chaykin's work. But then you get somebody like Alex DeCampi, another artist, another writer who I enjoy, saying something like, I said this last month and I'll say it again. Chaykin is punching down at marginalized groups so he can feel daring. Fuck that. Fuck him. The first issue of the why can't I get this name right? The Divided States of Hysteria came out during Pride Month with a Pride variant cover, no less. Unfortunately, the first issue also stars a trans sex worker who gets beaten, then kills the people that beat her, and then, I believe, goes to jail. So, yeah. This book, by the way, I don't think I've mentioned it, is about America in the midst of a second civil war. Kind of seems like something that we're getting towards. I think that's Chaykin's stance here, is this is plausible. And the cover that everybody is so up in arms about is plausible. This is something that we see in the news. This is something that is happening in real life. Yes, it is offensive, but that is the point of the cover, to make you feel offended because this is actually something that is happening. To say that it shouldn't exist is problematic when it depicts something occurring in reality. Not in America, as far as I know. Knock on wood. Here's hoping it's not. But it is happening in the Middle East. There was a person beaten the other day to death because he was selling beef. There are a series of acid attacks in London. There was a stabbing in Egypt. This couple, just enjoying their vacation, got stabbed out of nowhere. These things are happening all the time. Image actually released a statement about it because it caused such a hubbub. They said, "It's neither Howard's nor Image's intention to inflict pain on anyone already dealing with intolerance or hostility on a personal level. We all agree that any form of bigotry is wrong. And this comic exists due to anger and frustration over rapidly escalating injustice in a world filled with people too quick to judge others on the basis of their race, religion, or gender association. The purpose of this series is to sound alarms. The Divided States of Hysteria is a comic book about the terrifying future we are heading for if our country remains on its current path. Far from an endorsement of the horrible violence depicted or the ugly language used by many of the characters, Howard's goal is to give us a glimpse into a society crumbling under the weight of ignorance, hatred, and intolerance. It's unsettling to be sure, but it's difficult to convey the horrors of a world going wrong without also showing what it looks like." And there you go. There is the argument for why this book should exist. We're bringing attention to these horrors. It'd be like if Fahrenheit 451 never burned any books, or if 1994 didn't show this dystopian overseeing government. The whole point is lost if it's not there, if it's not depicted. Again, this isn't something I want to read. I see this stuff on the news. I hear about it in the BBC podcasts. I don't need to read about it in a comic book, but that's not saying that it shouldn't exist. I like that it exists. I like that Chaykin is bringing light to issues and making people aware that these things are happening. But to say that it should be censored, to say that, as I believe it was The Guardian said, the book should never have existed, the cover should have never existed, it's taking things a little too far. Image, in their infinite wisdom, did apologize for the cover and pulled it and had it replaced with what was supposed to be the cover for issue number 6. What I want to talk about, what I want to mention here, is Chaykin's response, because his response is gold. And it actually targets the same tweet that I mentioned at the top of this recording, one that I saw on my feed, and apparently he saw afterwards as well. And I didn't even realize this until I was doing research to record this. This is what he said. "If they were actually to read the book, perhaps other conclusions might be drawn, but I'm not optimistic. Despite the fact that I am, and have always been, a proud member of the American left, I'm being impugned from my side of the aisle by the sort of people who say such things as, 'I'm all for artistic expression, but..." See? Told you. It's that but that undercuts all that all for. No, you're not really. If that were the case, there'd be no buts. The only artistic expression deemed accessible by that but is an anodyne pandering to an apparently easily patronized audience. For the record, the cover depicts the horrific wish dream of some 45% of their fellow Americans. Perhaps if they spent a bit more time paying attention to the fact that the world they were born into is on the brink of serious disaster, they might have less time to get worked up about an image of genuine horror that depicts an aspect of that impending disaster. Is he right? I don't know. I think, worst case scenario? Possibly. I hope it doesn't come to that. I really don't want to see that happen. I think that we can all talk things out. We can get along. We can learn to live together. We can learn to love each other. But maybe I'm just a little too positive. But in a world where Donald Trump can tweet what he tweets and do what he does and say what he says, I don't see why Chaykin's cover can't exist. It's really not as horrible as some of the other things that are happening here. I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive in that. My argument boils down to this. If you don't like it, if you don't support it, if you don't want it to even exist, vote with your wallet. Don't buy it. Don't cover it. Don't mention it. Don't talk about it. Leave it be. Let it sit on the shelf. That is the thing that people listen to, is their money. It's not your Twitter rant. It's not these videos here. People don't listen to this. Well, I mean, obviously you're listening to it, but you know what I mean. Just don't ever call for something not to exist. Because you never know. Somebody might be saying that about what you make at some point. And then what are you going to do? Can't cry to everybody because you already did that. And you look kind of like a dick. So this has been another episode of Drunk on Writing Reacts. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, please like the video, share it with your friends, give me a comment. I'd love to hear if you read the book. If you don't, what are your reactions to the cover? Do you think Image was right to pull it? Do you think Chaykin is right to have done it in the first place? Love to hear what you think. And if you really liked it, please become a patron over at patreon.com/drunkonwriting, or follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/drunkonwriting, or on Twitter @drunkonwriting. No G. Remember, somebody else snatched that. They're bad people. We hate them.